Alright, this short video is going to be kind of an introduction to organic molecules. We've just talked in general about chemistry, but we're organic beings and we're made of mainly organic molecules, and those are molecules that are made with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen primarily. And so I want to just spend a little time comparing what we call organic and inorganic molecules to one another, and then giving you some general differences and some examples of things. So when we look at organic molecules, what we're going to find is that we're going to find mainly that hydrogen is going to be bonded to carbons. Carbon and hydrogens are the most common two molecules, or excuse me, atoms in organic molecules. We're going to find that organic molecules are covalently bonded. We're going to find that they are non-electrolytic, meaning that they do not conduct charge, they do not conduct electricity, they do not dissociate in water into their component ions and form those electrolytes. Okay? They're non-electrolytic. And because they have covalent bonds, they're not going to be electrolytic. Typically, organic molecules are very large, and these are the major components of living things. So we are carbon-based organic beings. Alright, so let's compare that with inorganic molecules then. Inorganic molecules, no hydrogen. Now, there is an exception to that, water. Water is an inorganic molecule. However, it does have hydrogen associated with it. So really, we're not going to see much hydrogen associated with inorganic molecules. Mainly what we're talking about is ionic bonds with inorganic molecules. Again, the exception is water. Water is inorganic, but it has polar covalent bonds. Inorganic molecules are electrolytic, meaning they will dissociate in water. Most of them will dissociate in water and will then be able to conduct charge. They're typically very small, especially when you compare them to organic molecules. They're very, very small. And except for water, there's our exception again, except for water, inorganic molecules play a very minor component of organic beings. Let me just add a couple little things here. Oxygen, okay, would be considered an organic molecule. It is very small, however, but it is considered an organic molecule. Oxygen is necessary for the release of energy from organic molecules. Necessary for the release of energy from organic molecules. Specifically in the process that we call cellular respiration. And this is the cellular process that breaks down carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins to produce ATP for our cellular needs. So oxygen is very, very important for that. Some other molecules. Carbon dioxide, even though it's carbon and oxygen, it is an inorganic molecule with covalent bonds. It actually is a byproduct of cellular respiration. We know that we exhale carbon dioxide and it can be bad for us, but it is important. It actually acts as a pH buffer in the blood and helps to maintain proper blood pH. And as I mentioned earlier in one of the videos when we talked about physiological buffers,
your body can change your respiratory rate to adjust the amount of carbon dioxide in the blood to maintain that window of pH. Some other important molecules, salts. Okay, we know that different salts will ionize to form electrolytes. There are salts that ionize are electrolytes and they form ions, but sodium chloride, potassium chloride, calcium chloride, among others, are important salts, and we know that they form sodium ions, chloride ions, potassium ions, and calcium ions. And all of those are very important for a variety of factors. Sodium and potassium are very important for that, what we call the resting membrane voltage, to making sure that cells have the proper membrane properties. Calcium is very important for muscle contraction. Chloride ions play a role in maintaining proper blood pH, important role in membrane voltage as well. And I already talked about water, so I'm not going to address that again. There was a whole little section on water and the importance of water as well. All right, let's kind of delve into a little bit of organic molecules and look at what we call the basic structure of organic molecules. Organic molecules are going to have what we call a carbon backbone, where carbon molecules are going to be bonded to each other and to other molecules as well. It's important to note that carbon is able to bond with 4 other atoms. Okay, that's real important to know. So we can make what we call a hydrocarbon, and we can say, well, here's our carbon. It can have 4 bonds. 3 of those bonds are held by hydrogens. The other bond is bonded to another carbon. Well, this carbon here is bonded to 2 other carbons, which means that there's only room for another hydrogen. Same with 2 more hydrogens. Same with this one, and then this here can take 3 because it's only bonded to 1 carbon. So all organic molecules have a carbon backbone as its foundation. Then what we'll find is what we call functional groups. And there's a lot of different functional groups that we're going to find on a variety of different organic molecules. If we look up here, we have hydroxyl groups, which is a hydrogen and an oxygen bonded together. We have methyl groups, which is a carbon and 3 hydrogens bonded together. That's a methyl group. And then you would have your carbon backbone here. You'd have your carbon backbone here. We have carboxyl groups, which we're going to find on a variety of different things, sugars, proteins, and amino acids specifically. And that carboxyl group consists of a carbon with a double bonded to an oxygen, a hydroxide group, and then we have our carbon backbone here. So again, this carbon can only have 4 bonds. So here's 2 with the oxygen, 1 with this carbon backbone, and then 1 with the oxygen on the hydroxyl group here. This is called a carboxyl. We have amino groups, which are a nitrogen group with 2 hydrogens attached to it. We'll see those when we look at amino acids and proteins. And then, of course, we have phosphate groups, which are a phosphorus molecule with 4 oxygens. There's a double bond there. This is actually a hydroxyl, if you will. 2 hydroxyls, a double bond, and then a connection to a carbon. This is what we find in ATP, and this is what gets transferred from one ATP to another molecule. So look and pay attention as we go through and talk about the different organic molecules, and I will try and point out these functional groups and how they're attached to that carbon backbone.